Hey everybody, it's Lydia Fiedler, and I'm very excited to bring you the online card classes new feature, Crafty Chat. During Crafty Chat, we will talk with some of your favorite designers and people you may know from the paper crafting industry and try to convince them to share their secret superpowers with all of you here on the blog. Today we'll be chatting with Laura Bassen. She has been a frequent contributor to online card classes, and you can find her work at Double Stick Heaven. And she will be talking to us today about finding your crafty comfort zone. So let's see what she has to say. Laura, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where we can find you on the interwebs?
A little bit about myself. I am a mother. Wife. I live in Central Illinois. Did I say I have 5 kids? Second day of school, they're all gone, and I've completely lost my mind. So if I don't make any sense, that's why. Yes. What else about myself? Oh, I studied graphic design and got my degree in that. And
I didn't know that.
I
didn't know that either.
I have a degree in graphic design, but then I fell in love with some hockey player, and he played in Germany. So right after I graduated, got my degree, I thought I was going to go to New York, but no, I moved to Germany, and he played hockey, and I taught English over there, and then I had kids, and the rest is history. So yeah, somewhere along the line in there, I went to a Stampin' Up! Party, and I was hooked.
Stampin' Up's a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, cool. I had no idea that you had studied graphic design. It makes so much sense now.
It does.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason why I felt we were kindred spirits.
Well, Laura, what we wanted to talk to you about, and now it does make sense, is your crafting comfort zone. Because you seem to have such a well-defined style in your work, and I think that's something that's hard for people to find about themselves, or maybe even hard for them to stick to later as they get influenced, on the internet. So we wanted you to talk about how you found your style and how you keep it.
Okay, I did not know that I had a well-defined style.
Oh,
but Jennifer, why don't you
go to your website?
What?
You should go to your website. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I try not to do that. Kind of like the mirror. I don't like looking in the mirror, and I don't like looking at my blog.
Well, I think...
Yeah, you should explain what you said.
Okay, well, when we were talking about finding your comfort zone, some people call it style, some people call it comfort zone, but I feel it's more a comfort zone than a style because, you can change the style of the card, but there's just something about what you do that always is signature Laura. You know what techniques feel good to you, what colors, the white space, and I think a lot of card makers really want to find that comfort zone. Some people like to experiment with lots of different things, and that's their comfort zone. Some people have found something like Copics, and that's their comfort zone. Some people have found simple is their comfort zone. But I think a lot of people who do this for a living have kind of found what works for them. For me, my comfort zone is I need to teach a technique in my card, like find something new or something I haven't done in a long time, and that's my comfort zone. It's kind of strange, but I think we all have something. What's neat about yours, Laura, is a card could be put in, 30 cards could be put in front of me, and I could instantly figure out which one's yours. Mm-hmm. Not only because it's probably my favorite of the 30 cards, but because there's just something about what you create that just screams you. It's colorful. It's got the great use of white space, but then there's techniques, the blending. I don't know. There's something that is Laura, and so we want to talk. You mentioned it took you a while to find your comfort zone. You told us that earlier, and so we just want to talk to you about how you find yours. And Christine and I can talk about ours too, but we want to hear about yours because it's such a. You just seem so comfortable where you are with how you create cards.
Wow. Wow. I didn't know I came off that way, but yes.
You seem like you've got it all together, darling.
Oh, I do. If I took this laptop and just did a little once over of my house, you would see that I do not have it together. But yeah, no, when I started, I think I started a blog back in 2008, And it was because I started following design teams. Like, you remember when Amuse, like Julie Ebersole was on the Amuse, and I just like fell head over heels in those cute little images in the Amuse stamps, those little people, and then the Stampin' Up, I'd go to the party and I would pour over the catalog, probably more than most people. Not so much for the product, which I loved, but the design of it. Like, I love design. That's probably my background, but I would say that's probably, like you say, yours is a technique that it's driven, that inspires you. Mine would probably be a design. Like, it has to have, I don't know, it has to feel right and look right, the design of it, where the elements are placed, where the sentiment, if it's tying into the images, and yeah, the colors. Color is so important to me. If the color's not right, the card is not right. And I guess, I don't really know if I can explain what's all up here, but it definitely did take me a long time when I started. I think I just started copying like the way they did it in the catalogs, like, and the way Julie Ebersole did it, and then get more into it, I started following Paper Tray Inc., and you see what like Dawn McVeigh, and she did a lot of layers. Back in the day, she did a lot of layers, a lot of buttons, a lot of bows, and I just did that because that was like the trend, trying to make the trend work for me, even though it really wasn't me, but I was trying to be trendy. Then my all-time favorite card maker, Christina Kowalczyk.
Oh, yes.
I love that.
Yes, I was like, I seriously, I think I'm a #1 fan. And I struggled to not be like her. And I used to try to make a card and think, what will Christina do? You know? But you know, honestly, I don't do that anymore. I really don't. I don't look at a card and think, what would so-and-so do? I don't know if you guys know this one gal. I'm not even sure if I can say her name right. I think she's German, and she doesn't even do card making anymore. Her name was Rahel Menig, or do you know what I'm talking about? I think she's like a photographer. Is it Rachel? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
Anyway, she had this unbelievable loose layering with lots of stitching, almost like a scrapbooker, but on cards.
Yep.
Lots of stitching and layers of pattern paper, but lots of white space. And there was a time when I tried to be like her, and yeah, it was hard to find myself. But I guess I do think I don't think about who I'm trying to be anymore. I look at the product, whatever I'm working with, and a design comes out of I don't know where it comes from, but yeah, it just comes.
I think that when you were starting, something that helped you find where you were comfortable is looking at what others were doing and kind of taking that as guidance, and then you figured out your own way. So you took that kind of as guidance, and then once you found your comfortable place, you didn't feel like you needed to think about that anymore.
Yes. But I would say I have a PhD in studying blogs. You know, I mean, like even to this day, I have my Feedly, you know, Feedly, and yeah. I probably have, I don't even know, and I go through quick. I don't read. I'm not a reader, but I go through and I just see what people are doing, and I don't know. I love it. Mark, my husband's always like, man, you really look at a lot. I just always like to see what's going on. I love it. But then, yeah, I don't try to be like anybody. I used to, but I don't anymore. But I definitely love to see what everybody's doing.
I think you have to be aware of what other people are doing. Going back to the whole graphic design thing, I think when you're studying graphic design, they really teach you to be aware of what's going on so you can follow trends and things like that. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you love to look at blogs. And I do the same, but most of the time when I really go looking at blogs is when I'm kind of in a creative funk and I don't really feel like I've got my mojo going, because then I need to go out and see some other creative things to like get me in that mood to think creatively. So that's mostly when I do a lot of blog surfing.
I'm the opposite.
Feel like you're in a funk?
What?
How often do you feel like you're in a funk?
I don't know. I go through phases where I'm super, super creative for like a week or a week and a half, and then there's like this lull right after where I just have to like take a break and like not do anything that's super creative. So or I turn to something else that's creative, but it's not what I spent a week and a half on. So, for instance, this last little bit, I was a little bit of a lull, and so I'm like, well, I'll just, watercolor for a little bit, and took a step away from card making and just watercolored for a while. And then, slowly it gets me back into card making. So I compare it to when I worked in an office environment, and I was working at Stampin' Up, and I was designing product. We'd work Monday through Friday, and by the time Friday morning came around, there were 4 of us on the product design team at the time. All 4 of us would just be like zombies sitting in front of our computers because it was so creatively taxing all week long that by the time Friday came around, we were spent. So I think even though you're awake and you're doing your thing, your mind is just completely elsewhere. Like, you cannot even focus. So that's usually when I get into a little bit of a creative funk because my brain just needs to reset itself. But I was going to mention, when you were talking about Dawn McVeigh, love Dawn. This is another random story. So Stampin' Up! Would have these, in fact I think they still do, demonstrators would send in cards that they'd made, and they had a little monthly contest or something. And the concept artists, all the gals that would do the cards for the catalog, they would get boxes and boxes, from the postman, and you drop them off, and then they'd open all the boxes and look at all the cards. So they're looking at all the cards, and then one of the girls comes running over to me, and she's like, Christina, this is funny, ha ha ha, nice joke. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you can't enter a card, you're an employee. Like, what are you talking about? And she holds up this card, and I'm like, I don't recognize that card, but it totally looks like something I would do. Like, I didn't know whose it was. And then she turns it over, and it was Dawn McVeigh's. I'm like, this.
Oh my gosh,
how funny!
And then later found out that we had the same purse. Like, she wore that purse, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that same purse. So we were connected on this weird cosmic level. And so, I mean, and since then, both of our styles have diverged. We're doing separate things. But I just thought that was funny.
Well, but what's funny to me is that you guys both find inspiration from other blogs. I can't go to other blogs. I can't do it. I find it drains me and makes me, because I feel like I want to do my own thing, and I'm afraid if I'm looking at other blogs, I won't be. So I have Feedly still too, and I have tons of blogs in there. I bet if I went in, I would have 1 million unread because I haven't looked at it in a long time. What I found better for me was following some crafty people on Instagram, because you can just float through it very quickly and see and you don't feel too, I don't know. I think for a lot of people, visiting blogs is super inspiring. I think that's awesome, but I think for a few people, some people, it can be overwhelming. And I think that's okay for people to figure out, Maybe you feel more comfortable just searching through card ideas on Pinterest, or maybe it's on Instagram, or maybe it's magazines. I think it's okay to not feel like blogs are what feeds you, Mm-hmm. And for some people, it's just YouTube. I know there's some people who just love to look at YouTube and never go to a blog. So I think part of finding your comfort zone is finding where your inspiration is and going with that. Or where you find your inspiration. And for me, I think it's Instagram. Because I think it's mixed in with other things that aren't card making.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't bore me.
Nature or art or whatever. Yeah.
Totally, that makes sense. I think as far as my style goes, sometimes I still question. I'm like, what is my style? Because to me, it feels somewhat eclectic. But with that being said, I can take some inspiration from somewhere, and then when I'm sitting at my craft desk and I'm working on it, I feel myself instinctively adapting it to what I feel looks best. And I think that's when your style comes into play, because that's what you're comfortable with. That's your comfort zone. And so that's what you gravitate toward. So, I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint your own style, I think, especially if you're not looking at your own stuff a lot. Like me, I do something and I look at it for a day while I post it, and maybe I post a picture of it on Instagram, but after that I don't look at it much. So sometimes it's hard to see that connecting trend in your own work.
One of the things that I think is interesting about what you said, Laura, is, gathering inspiration from other people's work
is, for me, it's as important, the process of knowing what to throw out, you know, what doesn't work for me, what I'm not good at, all of that. But then taking those pieces that I do love, the color, the design, whatever that little nugget of inspiration is, I can keep that and I can get rid of the rest, because at a certain point, you know what you're not good at. You know, I know I'm not good at vintage. I know I'm not good at anything three-dimensional. But I can take from those people who do that kind of beautiful work, I can take something I love and make it my own in my kind of, you know, different space that I'm in. I'm a blog reader too, so sorry, Jennifer. I look at your blog.
No, I think it's great. But if there's anybody, I think if there's anybody listening to this who's like finds it intimidating to go to a lot of blogs, I think that's okay. I think most people find it inspiring, but some people it's intimidating. I don't know.
Yeah, or it
I shouldn't say that because I have a blog and I want people to come to it.
I think one thing that a lot of people might find surprising, or I don't know, is that I have just as many insecurities now as I did in 2008. That hasn't gone away. That doesn't go away. You don't just like all of a sudden become like Miss Confidence. You don't. It's still, I'm still insecure about my design, the angle of my photography. Is it clear? Is it sharp? Is the lighting right? My YouTube videos, the sound, the lighting, you know, everything. I nitpick myself, and there are times when I have to, like, I have a stamp set and I've got to make a card with it, and I feel like I am beating my head against the wall, and I'll make a card and it's crap, and I'll make another card and I hate it, and then I walk away and I'm like, I can't do this, and I'm in the depths of despair, and then you come back later and you're like, no, it's not so bad, turned out all right. And it's like, what? I'm like an emotional roller coaster sometimes. I get zits, I break out in zits. People don't know these kind of things. So, you know, and I've made cards with, like, I have friends, you know, locally, and they'll come over. They're not really card makers, and I'll sit down and I'll try to, and the kind of effort, they just don't give the effort. It's like, you know, you got to stay with it, with the amount of pressure you know, you can't just, you know, and so it's not so much, I feel like it's not so much talent as it is perseverance.
Yes. Yes. Some people it comes right with very little perseverance. Some people it does.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely jealous of that.
Right.
But I'm the same way. Sometimes you got to walk away. You know what I found helped me, Laura? You know, I'll be caught up in a card, and I'm like, I have got to get this to work. And that roller coaster, right? And then I realize I can't let myself get this way. So you know what I do? I call one of the many kids in my house. You've got a few. And I say, come in, help me figure this out. And I'll ask them, which do you think? And they'll tell you in like 2 seconds. And they'll walk out like it was no big deal. And I find if I just follow that, it gets me out of the rut. You know what I mean? Like, I think I start to overthink it too much.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes you just need to ask. I'll text Christine, and I'm like, what do you think of this? And she'll do it with me. And sometimes you just need somebody to kind of, who isn't overthinking it, to just walk in and kind of hit you in the head. You know?
You need an outside perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I do that to my husband. I'll make 2 cards, and I'll be like, which one do you like better? And he'll be like, I like that one. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go with the other one. I do that all the time. Yeah.
That's funny.
But, yeah, you know, I hear comments, you know, sometimes people say, you know, with the ink blending or the ink smushing or watercolor or Copic coloring, I can't do that. It doesn't work for me. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't work for me. And I'm like, yeah, it works for everyone if you just stick with it. Like, don't quit, you know.
Yeah.
For
But
sure.
I think practice is something we're not taught, just as paper crafters. You know, if you were a musician, you were taught to practice. If you know, all these other disciplines, but people need to practice, sit down and do the same watercolored image 10 times in a row, and you'll be better on time 10.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people, they'll watch our videos, and then they'll sit down and try what we did, and it doesn't work.
Yes.
But what they don't know is that we didn't film all of our practice. We haven't, you know, we've been doing this for 10 years. There's a lot of practice. There's a lot of paper that didn't make it onto a card. There's a lot of time spent where you just played, but you got to get to a point where that practice you enjoy. You have to enjoy that part, and once you realize that all that practice is part of the fun, and it should be part of the fun, and that you need to do it, then I think you feel a little more confident. I don't know. I think we need to encourage ourselves to practice and just enjoy it more. It doesn't always have to turn out to be the best card ever made. And I think we also have to remember that the point of these cards is to send to somebody to make them smile. And if we make a card and afterwards I'm like, I don't like these colors. This just doesn't work for me. I think, okay, if I send this card to Christina, is she going to text me and say, thanks for the card, but the colors were off, so I don't appreciate it? So I know you don't love me because you really didn't put your all into. I mean, nobody does that. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I'll just say, hey, somebody's gonna like this, Okay, and that helps me too to stop overthinking it. I just remind myself why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to have fun, enjoy the creative process, and I'm doing it to make somebody smile in the end. If I'm doing those two things, I need to be okay with it because I'm a perfectionist too.
Yes.
So I'm with you.
I loved this saying that I don't know if they teach this when you become a stamp demonstrator, or maybe it was just when I briefly was one and my upline taught me this, but she had this little line in workshops where she would always say, if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. Paper has two sides.
Yes.
Just turn it over.
Yeah, I had two. When I used to teach in classes live, I taught in stores. The two lines I said we're handmade, not Hallmark, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And the other thing is I would say God loves us and gives us two sides to every paper. And those were always, and sometimes I have a hard time remembering those things, but it's a good reminder.
Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Crafty Chat with Laura Bassen. We will be back soon with another fun, crafty friend.